Alts. I guess you could say that I'm an altaholic. Coming from World of Warcraft, I leveled every single class to max level at one point or another. I do have a main that I play more often than the rest, but variety is the spice of life, am I right? In Ashes of Creation, I wanted to talk about how long leveling will be, at least on paper so far, and if alts would be a complete drag to do all over again. Hi, my name is Vlhadus, and this is Vlhadus Gaming, and today I'm going to be asking the question, should we have one toon be all classes? So the very first thing I want to talk about is how quickly you'll be leveling in Ashes of Creation. The reason why is because unlike a lot of MMOs where you level from 1 to max level in a single day most of the time, you won't be able to do that in Ashes. The developers anticipate max level should be obtainable in approximately 45 days if you play 4 to 6 hours a day. That's a long time for today's MMOs. Leveling won't follow a traditional linear path, although classic mechanics for leveling will exist. EXP will be gained through a variety of activities such as PvP, PvE, exploration, gathering, processing, crafting, events, and quests. Now that we've established how slow leveling will be and how EXP gained will be much more dynamic and left up to you as to how you choose to level your character, would it be better to have alts or just have your main be every class? I have seen the WoW side of the coin and how alts are done there. Now, let's take a look at the Final Fantasy side of the coin to see how alts are handled. Because of how long the Final Fantasy story is, having all of your alts combined on one toon is so much better of an experience than having to repeat the same story experience again and again. It also makes server populations more concise and easier to play a class you've never experienced before. There's no reason to log out to make another toon and start from square one. However, because of the bulk of your experience comes from the MSQ or main story quest, you're left to either run dungeons over and over or doing fates in your levels area. You don't have a lot of ways to level your toon in Final Fantasy XIV. You can also just choose to boost a class to level 70 in Final Fantasy XIV in the cash shop if you don't want to waste time leveling. Because you're playing one toon, any gear you get can be used on other classes. It's not just vendored or wasted because you weren't on the right class. Just to mention, in Final Fantasy XIV, all professions can be done on your character. Never need another person if you want to be self-efficient. In Ashes of Creation, however, you can do so much to level your class. With the node system changing throughout the leveling experience, it will constantly change how you choose to level your character. And again, regarding Ashes of Creation's professions, you can only master one of the 18 professions. If we did get to one toon per server, personally I would want to keep it to one max profession on the one toon so it would be a choice of what interests you the most. Now let's talk about the WoW side of the coin for a bit. Alts, at least in Shadowlands, are handled very poorly. Most of the account-wide progression never gets applied early on, so we're left with the same repeat content on every toon we make. Again, when it comes to leveling, doing your quest is probably the best way to level, or being run through dungeons. Most of the gear you earn on a character is soulbound, so you can't even mail it to another toon if they need it. There is very few gear items Blizzard usually gives as a reward that can be mailed to an alt. For how many endgame systems there usually is, alts have it pretty rough having to do the same repeat content. Speaking with professions, you can only be 2 professions on a single toon. The problem is that professions are simple, dull, and lifeless, and usually don't provide much in terms of gear. Most of the gear you wear comes from dungeons, raids, hardly ever from professions. The only relevant professions are non-gear professions like enchanting or alchemy. Talking about the latest livestream Ashes of Creation had this past February, the animal husbandry system looks to be so involved and deep. Having meaningful progression and rewards for professions are always a plus. Even WoW being limited in how many professions a toon can have, ultimately it doesn't matter because your alts can fill in those gaps. If you limit to one toon per server with only one profession able to be maxed out, people will always be needed and seeked out on a server. I'm not here to pick a side. Personally, I think it's a great discussion to have, honestly. Coming from WoW, I just wish alts were handled a lot better. Making more account-wide progression early on in an expansion. Playing Final Fantasy, it was great choosing what I wanted to play in each scenario. Gearing your alts was so amazing to do. One thing I will say for Ashes of Creation, please make it to where when you log into your server to pick your toon, that if there's a queue, you don't have to experience that queue again for changing to an alt. Final Fantasy doesn't have to worry about this because of one toon, all classes. I think both systems have their place, and for different reasons. As it sits right now, Ashes of Creation will have alts. I just brought up the Final Fantasy model because I think it's worth discussing and chatting about, especially when it comes to professions. I really want professions to be limited and hard to level because a lot of the game focuses on economy. Alts can also go into different professions than your main, which I believe is fine since the leveling in general will be a lot harder than it is in other MMOs, as well as the professions itself. So I'm very curious, what are your thoughts about alts? What kind of progression, if at all, would you want Intrepid to make account Y? Do you like how limited professions are going to be? How about the free-form leveling experience we are going to have? Please let me know down in the comments section. Give the video a like if you enjoyed our discussion on alts. Subscribe to my channel for Ashes-related content. Follow me on social media. My name is Vlhadus, and I'll see you in the next one.